We know demand depends on so many factors: price, income, taste and preference, price of substitutes, and future price expectation are a few of them. To introduce simplicity in my explanation, I limit myself only to these five forces. In microeconomics, change in quantity demanded is different from change in demand. We shall discuss the whole thing in terms of an individual consumer consuming good X. Take the demand schedule of the consumer. It shows an inverse relation between price and quantity demanded. To begin with, let the price be rupees 80. At this price, consumers' demand is 10 units. This is shown as a point in the graph given alongside. At rupees 25, he buys 8 units. Point C on the graph tells us about the consumer's reaction when the price falls to rupees 10. He buys 12 units. These 3 points constitute a demand curve, D1. With a rise in price, he buys less. He moves up to point B along the demand curve. In the demand schedule, he moves up from 10 units to 8 units. This is known as contraction in demand. With a fall in price, he moves down to point C along the same demand curve. In the demand schedule, he moves down to 12 units. This is known as expansion in demand. Note, expansion and contraction takes place along the same demand curve. They take place within the same demand schedule. Again, understand, both expansion and contraction are known as a movement along the demand curve. It is called as change in quantity demanded. Change in quantity demanded is the outcome of a change in the price alone. Other things are constant. Now let us try to understand shift in the demand curve. Assume income of the consumer increases. He wants to consume 12 units of good X and not 10 units at the existing price 18. How can you accommodate it in the present demand schedule? You cannot. You have to go for a new demand schedule. 12 units at 18 rupees price is represented as D in the graph. The point D cannot sit anywhere on the demand curve D1. He assigns a new quantity for each price in his new demand schedule. 10 units at 25 rupees, 14 units at 10 rupees. At each price, consumer is willing to buy more quantities. This is known as increase in demand. These points are plotted on the graph. A new demand curve D2 passes through these points. Demand curve D2 is based on the new demand schedule. It lies to the right of the original demand curve D1. It is known as increase in demand. So the consumer is moving from demand curve 1 to demand curve 2. This is again known as rightward shift of the demand curve. It is brought out by an increase in income only and not by the price. Shift of the demand curve is the outcome of any one of the forces other than price. Price remains constant. We shall now examine a leftward shift of the demand curve. Let us assume the taste and preference of the consumer turns against good X. He would like to buy 8 units at 18 rupees price. This is less than what he was buying originally. To show this activity, we have to construct a new demand schedule. We shall locate this point in the graph as G. This price and quantity combination can be found neither on the demand curve D1 nor on the demand curve D2. He fills the new demand schedule with his preferred quantity after a change in taste. We shall fix these points also. At 25 rupees price, he is willing to buy 2 units. At 10 rupees price, he is willing to buy 10 units. By joining K, G, H, we get a demand curve D0. You must understand that a negative change in taste and preference has brought out this new demand curve. There is a shift in the demand curve to the left. This is due to decrease in demand. You must know this shift is caused by a change in taste and preference alone. Such a shift can be brought out by forces other than price. Shift of the demand curve either to the right or left is called change in demand. We shall summarize what we have learnt so far. Extension in demand, contraction in demand takes place along the same demand curve. It is caused by price alone. This is known as change in quantity demanded. At the existing price, if the consumer wants to buy more, he will move from point A to D. Or, if he wants to buy the same quantity at a higher price, he will move from point A to E. In both the cases, he moves to the demand curve D2 that lies to the right of the demand curve D1. There is an increase in demand. If the consumer wants to buy less at the existing price, he will move from A to G, or if he wants to buy the same quantity at a lower price, he will move from A to H. In both occasions, the consumer moves to a new demand curve D0. It is to the left of D1. This is a shift of the demand curve to the left. It is known as decrease in demand. Both increase and decrease in demand are together called as change in demand. Change in demand is caused by factors other than price. That ends our discussion. Thanks for watching.